Well, hey there, guys. Greetings and salutations, and welcome back to the channel for this installment of Open Mic, where the mic is open, the floor, as they would say, is yours. What's the stuff that you guys want to talk about? That is what we are here to discuss. I am, of course, your host, John Campea. Good to have you guys here. And for those of you who might be new to an open mic, it's kind of just like the John Campea Show. It's a more casual, laid back. We're just here to talk about stuff. And hello to everybody who's already joining us in here. By the way, guys, it's been like a month since we've done an open mic. So if you guys let me know if the mic is working fine, if the video is working fine, all that kind of stuff. Good to have you guys back. And of course, we took a break for Christmas vacation. Michael Gonzalez is saying everything's good. Thanks a lot for that, Michael. We took a break for Christmas vacation. Then I took a trip up to Canada to visit family. And then I got ridiculously sick and got hospitalized. And then I was still, even though I feel good, the last couple of weeks, I've still been dealing with inflamed airways and stuff like that. So I'm still coughing a little bit, which has made it really difficult for me to try to do open mic, but I'm still not 100% better, but I think I can stumble my way through an open mic. So it's good to be here. And thank you for that, K Major. K Major's pointing out that my mom is going to be going home. I mentioned this on the John Campea Show earlier, but my mom has been in hospital for almost 2 years. And, last year I had to go home quickly because my mom was going in for a surgery that they said she only had like a 10% chance of surviving. And so I thought I was going home to say goodbye, to be honest with you. And she got through that. And then even though she got through the surgery, they thought, well, she'll die in hospital. She'll never be able to leave the hospital, or things may still go bad, but things have gone really well. And she called me today to let me know that their medical team has had their meeting and they're ready for her to go home, and which is a huge thing. So, yeah, very, very good day for me. I'm not gonna lie. Good day for the Campea family. And, yeah, so I'm in kind of a good mood, and we're back to do open mic again. Now, listen, gonna let you know, the way you send in a question for open mic, there's two different ways. One way is to use the super chat feature, and we'll get to those in a minute. But also you can send in a question anytime 24/7, even when we're not live, using our tip link at streamelements.com/JohnCampea/tip. Now, because we haven't done an open mic in like a month, there's like well over 20 pages of tip questions for us to get through. I am clearly not going to get through all of those today. So we're going to get through as many of these of the tip questions as I can. Then we'll go over to the super chat questions, and then we'll pick up with the tip questions tomorrow as well. I'm also going to warn some of you that obviously, since we haven't done an open mic in a number of weeks, some of these questions are going to be a little out of date, maybe a little bit out of date. And Wally Jackson asked me if I'm looking forward to Argyle. You know, the other thing I mentioned on the John Campea Show earlier today was that you guys know I no longer go to any press stuff, right? I gave up red carpets years ago. I gave up press junkets years ago. And I've even stopped going to all press screenings. I don't go to them anymore. And even though I still get invites to them, I just don't go to them anymore. But I got my press screening invite to Argyle, and it's my boy, Henry Cavill. And I think this might be the first press screening that I actually accept the invitation to in a long time. So we'll see. But hey, listen, guys, before we get to your questions, we've had a little bit of a Daredevil kind of theme today, right? We talked a little bit earlier today about how Daredevil Born Again is not going to have the 18 episodes that we were promised. Rather, it's probably going to be 12 or 13 episodes, which I'm okay with because that's still like more than double than what most Disney Plus shows give us. So that's fine. We also talked about the insanely good news that the stunt coordinator from the original Netflix Daredevil series has been brought back, and he's now going to be the stunt and fight coordinator for the series and the second unit director for the Daredevil series. So that's going to have a lot of people excited. Well, here's another thing to get excited about. Of course, they scrapped all production on Daredevil a long time ago and scrapped almost everything, but Daredevil is shooting again. They are officially in front of the cameras again, and shooting and production is happening right now as we speak on the new Daredevil. And a Hollywood Reporter wrote this. He said, Marvel Studios starting out 2024 on sturdy footing as it begins to refocus and rebuild its TV shows, coming off the strong opening of Echo. I don't know how strong opening Echo had, but whatever. Daredevil Born Again, which restarts production Monday. That's today. After a lengthy hiatus, as we mentioned earlier, Philip Silvera, who acted as stunt and fight coordinator on the Netflix Daredevil, a version of Daredevil that ran in the mid-2010s, has returned to the fold to act as stunt coordinator and second unit director for the new series. So guys, it's that tangibilization. Daredevil Born Again is shooting again, only this time, when it was shooting before, it was not the same Daredevil as the Netflix series. But now it is the same Daredevil as the Netflix series, at least to a degree, right? Like, they're going to Grand Admiral Thrawn this, I think, right? They're going to take some of the things from the Netflix Daredevil series and in general say this is the same Daredevil as Netflix series. But I don't think they're bringing everything over. I think they're going to pick and choose some things. We talked about this the other day. They're going to pick and choose some things that are canon, some things that aren't canon, they'll leave behind. So just because something happened in the Netflix universe doesn't mean it's going to be canon to the MCU, but they're going to pick and choose and see where it goes. But listen, the fact that they're up and running again, that means they have been working furiously behind the scenes to get everything up and ready to go. And they're shooting again, and it ain't going to be too long before we get to have Daredevil again. So I'm very, very excited about that. And we'll see how it all kind of goes and transpires. All right. If you guys have any questions about that, thoughts, theories, opinions, make sure you guys send them in. All right. With that all down, guys, let's get over to the questions that you guys have been sending in, shall we? We're going to get things started off with this. We're going to start off with an anonymous viewer who writes, every couple of years I do a Christmas rewatch of the Harry Potter movies. Watching this year, I ended up thinking about the unusual and diverging trajectory of the three leads' careers. Emma Watson was a show stealer in the early movies, but hasn't really delivered a good performance outside of her small role in This Is the End. Oh, Tick, you are very wrong about that. Very wrong. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. Daniel Radcliffe was pretty terrible to begin with, but he's worked on his craft and puts in solid performances quite consistently now. And Rupert Grint was probably the stronger actor of the young cast, but despite the talent, his career never really took off. I suppose there's hundreds of reasons as to why. Just consider it a unique observation from a Potterhead like myself. Curse, you autocorrect on that last sentence. Well, I mean, Rupert Grint, he's been working a bunch more lately. He was on that Apple TV series. He was in that Knock at the Cabin Door or whatever the name of that was. So yeah, he's done a bunch. But as far as the Emma Watson thing goes, she hasn't turned in a good performance since? Does Perks of Being a Wallflower not exist? Does, what was that standard one? I mean, we won't talk about The Circle. The one that there's a bunch of versions, Little Women. Her performance in Little Women was great. It was really good. And listen, while the movie may not have been fantastic, and while her singing may not have been on par with a lot of the other singers in it, I thought, singing aside, I thought her performance in Beauty and the Beast was actually pretty solid. Again, I just didn't think her singing was up to the same quality level as a lot of the other cast members. But I thought, so yeah, she hasn't turned in a good performance. First of all, she was brilliant in Little Women. She's brilliant in Perks of Being a Wallflower. So I would disagree. I would say this. I think all three of them, I agree. I think Rupert Grint at the beginning was kind of like the strongest of the three. But right now, I think all three of them are very good. Like Daniel Radcliffe is like winning awards for the Weird Al Yankovic movie, which is great. So yeah, I think all three of them have been pretty strong, to be honest with you, but that's just me. All right. Thanks for sharing your thoughts, Dick. All right. Next up, let's go back down to BK Dan, who writes, John, with Major's verdict back as guilty on 2 charges, I think Disney should move on from Kang instead of recasting, because if they recast, the takeaway will be on the verdict. That's not their problem. That's not their problem. If they move on to an entirely different way, the story will be the brand new character. So here's the thing, BK Dan. You don't make your decision if you're good, you don't make your decision based on that. You just base your decision on what's best for our story. That's it. Is Kang best for our story right now? And if Kang is best for your story, you don't worry about the outside noise. You recast, because, I kind of unfortunately, they're in a position where they need to recast. You recast and you move forward. If Kang isn't the best way forward for your character or for your story, then don't recast. Just write the character out. Listen, I really think Disney and Marvel made a mistake, a well-intentioned mistake, best of intentions, but I really thought they made a mistake by not recasting T'Challa, right? What was clearly best for the story of the MCU as a whole was for T'Challa to still be around. That was what was going to be best for the MCU. And again, I understand their hearts were completely in the right place, right? I ain't mad about it because their hearts were in the right place. They wanted to honor Chadwick Boseman. So they felt bad about recasting the role, but really the way they should have looked at it was the best way to honor Chadwick Boseman is not to kill off the character. The way you honor Chadwick Boseman is pick up the ball and carry it for him now that he can't carry it himself anymore. You take all that great work that he did making this great character and you carry it on. Rather than, oh, this great character Chadwick created? Yep, throw it in the trash. Don't need that stinky character anymore. That's how you honor Chadwick Boseman? Nah. Now, the way you honor Chadwick, and again, they totally were trying, their hearts were in the right place. I have no qualms with that, right? Their hearts were totally in the right place. But my way of looking at it is, that ain't how you honor Chadwick Boseman. You honor Chadwick Boseman by taking this work that he did, and you carry on that work. You let it grow, and you move that character forward based on the great. So, yeah. And so anyway, bring it back to Kang, right? They shouldn't make the same mistake. Put the story first. Personally, I don't think the story of Kang has worked out all that well for them. So I'm okay with them moving on from Kang entirely. But if Kang is integral to what they want to do with their story moving forward, then just recast. But put the story first. At least that's kind of my way of looking at it. Just kind of put the story first. And then you can't go wrong if you put the story first. That's the way I look at it at any rate. All right. Next up. We already did that one from the Tick, and now we're on to Anonymous, and Anonymous writes, every time there's a Dwayne Johnson topic, you always remind us he's your second favorite movie star. Yeah, I don't think he's the second best actor in the world, but he's kind of my second favorite movie star behind Ryan Reynolds. So I have to ask, how is it not big news for you that he's doing a movie with one of the Safdie brothers, thus stepping outside of his usual movie wheelhouse? Because it's a fair question to ask, Anonymous, but just because somebody's one of my favorites doesn't mean everything that they do is something I'm going to get excited about, right? The project itself has to look exciting. Like Ryan Reynolds, clearly one of the main sponsors of my channel. I don't hide that, but he before he became a sponsor of my channel with Mint Mobile, you guys know he's been like my favorite movie star. Good Canadian Kid has something to do with that. But just because Ryan Reynolds is attached to something, that doesn't automatically get me excited about it. The project itself has to look exciting to me. And so, yeah. So again, fair question, but I mean, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson just being in something is not what gets me excited. Something that looks good and Dwayne Johnson's attached to it, that's when I start to get excited. So yeah, that's just me. Anyway, fair question, man. Fair question. All right, next up. Moogie writes, John, The Abyss and True Lies, two magnificent movies. A little bit of John Campea trivia for you. For those of you who don't know, True Lies is my all-time favorite action film. All-time favorite action film. Anyway, The Abyss and True Lies are finally on streaming. I'm so happy. I miss those movies. Where are they on streaming? I think I remember hearing that True Lies was coming to streaming, but where is it? Any of you guys watching live know where I can find this delight, this greatest action film of all time, in my opinion? Do you guys know where this would be? Anybody know? Nobody seems to have an idea right now. Well, if you do, let me know. Tina Murray is saying it's on Hulu. So, yes, wow, it is not on Campea Plus yet. Not on Campea Plus. Jose XCI is saying it's on Disney Plus in New Zealand. Well, of course, Disney owns Hulu, so yeah, that would kind of be interchangeable. God, I love that movie. And The Abyss. Oh, The Abyss is so good. If you guys haven't seen The Abyss, make sure you watch The Abyss. All right, next up. The Chad writes, hey, John. Pardon me, guys. I'm going to cough a lot, so my apologies. Hey, John, big fan. Thank you so much. Not going to lie. I had zero interest in seeing Wonka up until the recent trailers. Took my son to see it. It was delightful. My son loved it. I think it was my biggest pleasant surprise of the year. What has been yours? Okay, so let me get back to Wonka in a second. My biggest pleasant surprise of the year might be the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Because, I'm not a fan of the modern iteration of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The real Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are not skateboard riding, pizza loving, cowabunga dude guys. The real Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are those original black and white, gritty, violent comics. I love those. So I'm not really a huge fan of the modern iteration of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but I will tell you what, that Mutant Mayhem movie was wonderful. I saw it twice in theaters, and the second time I watched it, I was laughing at places that I didn't even catch the first time because I was laughing so hard at other stuff. It was a charming, wonderful little movie. Again, I don't consider these Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to be the real Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. All right. They're just not. That's fine. This movie on its own was a delight, and I had a really good time with it. And they are doing a sequel. They are going to do a sequel with it. So very excited about that. And then Wonka was just wonderful. I was excited about it because Paul King, the guy who did Paddington and Paddington 2, was directing it. Timothy Chalamet, who I believe has the potential to be the next Daniel Day-Lewis. Not that he is. I say he's got the potential to be the next Daniel Day-Lewis. He's a remarkable performer. So I was very interested in it, but Wonka exceeded my expectations. I thought it was really good, and I'm glad you liked it too. And it's now made over $500 million. It very quietly has gone on to make, I think it's at like 500. I think it's now like $534 million. Who would have thought a year ago? Let's go back a year, maybe 2 years, and say, hey, there's going to be this Wonka movie and Aquaman 2, and Wonka's going to beat the hell out of Aquaman 2 at the box office. Who would have thought that? Not me, but there you have it. So it's done very well, and I couldn't be happier for them. It's a wonderful little movie. All right. Next up, the chat also writes, John, I find the current quote unquote war on wokeness hilarious, especially when it comes to comic book movies, because I'm pretty sure these people have not read the old comics, which I'd argue are way more quote unquote woke and especially more political by their standards. Oh no, it's true. It's true. I remember John Schnepp used to point this out a lot. Rob points this out a lot, that, just look at the history of Stan Lee and like a lot of the times what he said were his motivations. Here's the problem. Ignorance seems to be the hallmark of the self-proclaimed anti-woke mob. Ignorance seems to be the biggest hallmark. And I don't mean ignorance as in they're stupid. That's not what I mean. I mean that by the literal definition of the word, unknowing. So like, here's an example, okay? Here's an example. You'll often get a lot of people crying and whining about Kathleen Kennedy, somebody who, for the record, I think should go. I don't think Kathleen Kennedy should be the head of Lucasfilm anymore, right? Just for the record, I don't think she should be. I don't think she's done a good job. But that being said, you'll always get these people who still to this day will scream and holler about Kathleen Kennedy thinks the Force is female. Because one time, at a Star Wars premiere, she wore a t-shirt that said the Force is female. The Force is female was a Nike ad campaign promoting and endorsing female athletes. Kathleen Kennedy just thought it would be great to support that campaign by wearing that shirt at the Star Wars premiere. But you talk to a lot of these people today. It's like Kathleen Kennedy made that shirt and she made it to make a statement that Star Wars is now all about women. It's like, but that's not what it was. She was literally wearing a Nike ad campaign shirt to support female athletes. That's what it was. So now there's this big thing. Have you seen this? That the woman who's directing the new Rey movie, right? Which, by the way, if you guys watch the show, you know I have some very serious concerns about that project, right? I don't think making a Rey movie is a good idea because that you're just bringing up the divisiveness within the fan base automatic. I don't think it's a good idea. And I have some concerns that this director has never really done a narrative feature film before. So I'm concerned. I have concerns. Okay. Fair concerns. But here's the thing. There are people who are running around right now screaming bloody murder about a quote this woman gave, saying during an interview, this female filmmaker said, "I want to make men feel uncomfortable. I want to put something in their face and make men feel uncomfortable." Right? Have you guys seen that? Have you seen that? The people have been running around like throwing this quote up and all this kind of stuff, right? Here's the thing that they're not telling you. That quote, I think, was from like 5 years ago. Here's the context. This woman has made several documentaries, all right? Award-winning, Oscar attention documentaries about the plight of women in other countries. For example, about like women where it was okay for men to throw acid in women's faces, and women who suffered a lot of abuse in different countries and all that kind of stuff. And she made documentaries about these horrible nightmare things that would happen to women at the hands of men in these other countries and things that were going on. That was the context of the interview when she made the statement years ago in talking about these films she was making about men throwing acid in women's faces and men abusing women, that she said, "I want to make men feel uncomfortable." Well, if the context is about men abusing women and throwing acid in women's faces, of course she should be trying to make women feel, or she should be trying to make men feel uncomfortable with the thing. I should be made to feel uncomfortable when I'm watching that. 100%. She was not talking about Star Wars. Now, again, I'm concerned because she's never made a narrative feature film. She's made documentary feature film. She was a director on the wonderful Ms. Marvel TV series, but she's never directed a narrative feature film. So I have some concerns about that. And if you have concerns about that, that's totally fair. But this narrative that some people out there are trying to, did you see what she said about Star Wars? She said that she wants to make men feel uncomfortable with Star Wars. That was a quote from 5 years ago talking about these documentary films where women were being abused. So what happens is a lot of these self-proclaimed anti-woke things, they literally take this stuff and they trust in the ignorance of their audience to not know the real facts behind it. Right? The Force is female. It was a Nike ad campaign. Yeah, but our audience doesn't know that, and we want to rile them up. This lady says she wants to use Star Wars to make men feel uncomfortable. That's not what she was talking about. It was a quote from 5 years ago in the context of these documentaries about abused women. Yeah, but my audience doesn't know that, so I get to talk about it and get them all fired up. It's infuriating. It's infuriating. And it's stuff that, so the audience just needs to educate themselves more on these sorts of things. And again, it's just, you see it all over podcasts, blogs, YouTube channels, all over the place, this stuff. And like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these outlets. And it's like, and maybe some of them don't know the real context, but I think some of them do and just don't want their audience to actually know the context too. Anyway, Whatever. It is what it is. All right, let's keep going on. Next up, let's see. Where were we? Okay, that was the chat. Next up, Garden Variety Vagabond writes, have you seen the interview where Tom Cruise said Les Grossman was his idea? I don't think he said the totality of the character was his idea. I think there were elements. He was saying there were elements of the character that was his idea. Ben wanted him in the film. First, Tom said he asked if they had a studio character. Tom created that role to include must have fat hands and dance. See, I was actually going to point that out. I remember seeing the Tom Cruise interview where he specifically talked about he wanted, and Ben Stiller talked about this too, that, pardon me guys, I'm going to use a Hall's lozenge here. That Cruise suggested fat, chubby hands. Again, although I don't think that means he was the creator of the totality of the character of Les, right? I think it's still, I think that was still the basics of it. I think the basic construction blocks of it were still Ben Stiller, but Tom Cruise came in, gave a lot of great ideas for it. I still think it might be my favorite Tom Cruise character ever, man. I love that character so much. All right. Next up, Goldie Roger writes, hey, John, I know you don't do full reviews for things you watch late, but I was wondering if you could give a few words about your experience with One Piece. Oh, I've talked about that a lot, actually, on my show. Anyway, what did you think about the lore, favorite characters, top moments, etc.? Thanks. Yeah, One Piece is a really interesting experience for me because I had no interest in watching One Piece. No interest in it at all. But I had a few of you guys, the viewers, telling me that it was actually quite good. So I said, I'll give it a shot. And I loved it. I loved it. The live action One Piece. I then went and tried some of the anime. It's not for me. But the live action one was completely wonderful. Sometimes there are these stories, these movies and TV shows where they have a main character. It's like, I don't believe anybody would follow this lead character. And at first, I thought the same way about Luffy. But as the show progressed, I'm like, no, I can totally see why these other weird characters would totally follow him and be loyal to him. This show did a great job of making me getting me emotionally attached to the characters. I thought they were all charming. And yeah, I had a really good, I don't think it was a perfect show, but you know what? I had a much better time with that. If Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem was my pleasant surprise movie of the year, I think my pleasant surprise show of the year was probably One Piece. So yeah, that's kind of my feelings on it. Anyway, next up. The next one comes to us from Cade Sorgel, who writes, hey, John, big fan of the show. Thank you so much. Have you had a chance to check out Blackberry? Yes. I think it's the most underrated movie of the year, directed by good Canadian kid Matt Johnson. Glenn Howerton delivers a fantastic performance. I had so many of you guys telling me about this Blackberry movie. Of course, Blackberry was a Canadian company. It dominated. Like, if you were anybody, you had a Blackberry. There was a period of that time. And then the iPhone came out. But it was Blackberry was everything. And a bunch of you guys told me about this little movie based on that. And I actually watched it over the Christmas holidays. You guys were right. It's wonderful. Like, I don't think it's as good as The Social Network. I don't think it's as good as, say, what was that one about the Cheetos? Flamin' Hot. Was that the name of it? Flamin' Hot. I don't think it was good as Flamin' Hot, but it was really good. And I had a really good time with it. So I'm very, very grateful that a lot of you guys really encouraged me to watch it. Thank you for that. All right. Next up, we got Joe Adonis, who writes, hey, John, Chris, and Ray. Obviously, it's just me who does open mics. Ray, just get John's password. Tropic Thunder is on Hulu. Also, justwatch.com is your friend when it comes to find out where you can watch a movie you are looking for. You know, I've had somebody else recommend that to me because that's often it's like, okay, I know this thing's out there, but I don't know where to find it. That's a good thing. I still can't believe Ray there's a couple of, look, you'd be shocked how many big movies Ray hasn't watched. And here's the thing. I inevitably get these people who just don't get anything, who will often write in and say, why is Ray on a movie show? He hasn't watched a lot of movies. Well, because Ray's primary job here is not to be on camera. That's not his primary job. His primary job is post-production, pre and post-production. He's a graphics guy. He does a lot of the post-production on the show. He edits out the various segments. He metadata. He does all the thumbnails. He uploads everything. He makes the graphics we use in the show, all that that's his job. And then he's on camera when I need him. He's not on camera very much during our shows, but he kind of represents the average film goer, I think, right? And then I go to him when I need information looked up and stuff like that. And I just think he's a really funny personality. So a lot of people go, why is Ray on this show? Well, that's not his primary job. He's just here because I need him. And when he is on, he's just a charmingly delightful personality to have on the show. So anyway, that's me. Ray is a bright star. Who said that? I think it was Hancock. Ray is a bright star. Everybody loves Ray. Wasn't that the name of a show? I think so. Yeah. And he is my brother-in-law. Which like people, it's nepotism. That's what, no. Ray's been working with me since the early AMC days because he was the guy who was available, who was really talented at doing graphics and was available to help me. Had nothing to do with the fact that he was my brother-in-law. He's just really good at what he does. He's great. All right. Next up, we go to Dumb of All Fears writes, Defense of Martha. 1, Superman said, save Martha. And in that moment, Batman's working out the full situation. He solved bigger problems with less. 2, it also triggered his last memory of his mom, reigniting that spark of humanity Batman was about to lose. I mean, I did an entire video in defense of the Martha scene. Let me see if I can find it here. In defense of the Martha scene. I don't know. Yeah, there it is. Hey guys. Boy, this was done 7 years ago. I don't look all that different, but that was 7 years ago. In defense of the Martha scene. And I did a full 11 minute 17 second editorial on breaking it down. Why I defend that scene. I think a lot of people just misunderstand the scene because a lot of people interpret that scene as him going, holy cow, your mom has the same name as my mom? What? No, that's not what was happening. I think that moment, remember, he still thinks this guy, Superman, is going to kill the world, right? Despite what other people are telling him. And in that moment, when he's about to kill Superman, a couple of key things happen. One is that he used what was going to be his last breath, asking Batman to save somebody. I think that totally threw Batman's paradigm off and his understanding and his worldview of what Superman's place in the world was and everything. I think that threw him off. And I think the fact that their mothers had the same name, I think that humanized Superman to Batman. It wasn't wait, we've got moms with the same name. No, but I think that little coincidence, I think not only did it change his paradigm about this guy who I think is here to destroy the world, he's about to die and he's asking me to go save somebody. And then I think the very fact that him just like calling out his mom's name, I think humanized Superman more to Batman. And I think that's what caused this existential crisis in Batman's own head. Batman had spent years believing Superman is bad news and he's going to be the end of all of us and he's got everybody duped. And then in that one moment, and you're right, Batman has deduced a lot more with a lot less information before. And so I think in that moment, it caused him to completely re-examine his paradigm. And that's it. So I'm not saying Batman versus Superman is the greatest film in the world. And I'm not saying you should like the movie if you don't. But I will always defend that Martha scene. I just think people misunderstand it. And I think that's Zack Snyder's fault that people misunderstand it, because he didn't set it up right. But yeah, me personally, I defend the scene. All right. And it's okay if you disagree with me on that. That's just kind of my take on it. All right, next up. An anonymous viewer writes, I saw Oppenheimer for the 5th time. That's a lot of viewing, man. That's 15 hours of viewing. I don't think Jason Clarke gets enough recognition for playing Roger Robb. I think you're right about that. So convincing as that type of prosecutor, he makes me feel so under siege. Have always loved him. Not sure why he doesn't get more recognition. I actually think Jason Clarke gets a lot of recognition. I mean, first of all, him in that Los Angeles Lakers show, Winning Time, he was one of my favorite characters on TV while that show was still on. But there's a reason why everybody keeps going to Jason Clarke, right? There's a reason why Jason Clarke is in so much stuff and people keep wanting to work with him. He's fantastic. He's always fantastic. Now, it's Cillian Murphy's movie. Robert Downey Jr. is probably going to win an Academy Award for it. You got Emily Blunt in there. Florence Pugh gets naked. Certain elements are going to get overlooked. And I think it's to be expected that Jason Clarke will get a little bit overshadowed because Robert Downey Jr. put in an Oscar-winning performance. Cillian Murphy may have put in an Oscar-winning performance. It's going to Best Picture of the Year. So yeah, I don't think you're right. I think you are right. He does not get the credit he deserves for what he brought to this movie, I think. All right. Next up, Marcus R. writes, Hey, John, longtime viewer, first-time writer. Thank you for writing in, Marcus. Love the show and your stance on the subjectivity of film. Got into an argument about it with someone recently, and I staunchly took your stance. Also, really liked Rebel Moon. Definitely has issues, but fun. So that's a great example of subjectivity of film. I thought Rebel Moon was terrible. I thought it was absolutely terrible. But you enjoyed it, and that's the important thing, right? And here's the thing. I love that you enjoyed it. But John, you didn't like the movie. I know I didn't like it. I wish I did, but I didn't. But I want you to like it. I want all of us to love the entertainment that we consume. The reality is we won't always. But just because I don't like something doesn't mean you shouldn't. And just because you like something that I don't doesn't make me insecure about me not liking. Oh, you like something I don't? Well, that means I might not be right. It's entertainment. It's subjective, right? I just hate this notion that you need to like what I like and other people need to hate what I hate. That's ridiculous. There's a lot of movies and TV shows I hate, but if you I hate the prequels, they're garbage. But if you like them, that's awesome. I celebrate that. I'm never going to try to talk you out of it. So yeah. And that is the heart of the subjectivity of film and why I think it's so important for film fans to understand. All right. Next up, Ethan Holgate writes, Top 10 favorite movies of 2023. 10, Fast X. Ooh. Subjectivity of film. Anyway, I loved it, John. Good on you, Ethan. 9, Guy Ritchie's Operation Fortune. I quite enjoyed that movie myself. Number 8, The Flash. I love The Flash. Number 7, Blackberry. I really dug. Number 6, Joyride. Best comedy I've seen in years is Joyride. Number 5, Oppenheimer. Number 4, Killers of the Flower Moon. Number 3, The Killer. That's the Michael Fassbender film. Number 2, John Wick 4. And number 1, Saltburn. You know what? Saltburn is a deep, multi-layered, very interesting movie. I did not like it as much as most people did. Quite frankly, I thought the twist at the end was kind of obvious. And so I didn't quite appreciate it. I still enjoyed it though. And it's a very deep film. And again, the performances, top notch, very multi-layered story. The final product wasn't as good as I was hoping it would be personally, but hey, if it's your number one, that's awesome. And by the way, I know you're not alone. I know a number of people who really, really love that movie. All right. Next up, Duck writes, Buenas tardes. I'd recommend The Iron Claw. I very much loved The Iron Claw. I thought it was great. It has something to say and an interesting way to say it, but I can't say that I liked it. It feels as if it's so close to giving me what I want to feel, but doesn't get there. Then I thought maybe it could be done on purpose to make the audience understand how the characters were not allowed to feel. But in my opinion, that doesn't work for me either, because the theme is very in your face. It feels like some stuff was sacrificed for no reason. Just wanted to hear everyone's thoughts and similar experiences with other movies. Had similar experiences this year, but they were also so well made that I can't say they're bad movies. Example, Past Lives. Here's the thing about The Iron Claw and other movies, quote unquote, based on true stories, is when it comes to true stories, there are things that a filmmaker will try to say, and then there just are things that are, right? There are things a director may want to say, but then there are things that just are the way they are. The tragic story of that family, the Texas tornado and the whole family, the Von Erichs, is such a Shakespearean tragedy. It really is. It is not a movie you come out feeling good. You know what I mean? It's not a movie you come out feeling good. It's a heavy movie. And again, it's a tragedy. The movie is a tragedy. And so I do think there are things in there that the director was trying to say, but I also think a lot of the movie was just showing us their story. And it's heavy, and it's a bit depressing. It's powerful. And the way he narratively took that movie and told a story about it was very impressive. But it's not a movie I can recommend to a lot of people. Hey, you looking for some fun on Saturday night? Go see Iron Claw. Yeah, it's not that movie. But I personally thought it did a great job. I really did. But that was me. But I totally understand where you're coming from, how you feel. Again, Saltburn. I was just talking about Saltburn. I think I feel about Saltburn the way you kind of feel a little bit like the Iron Claw. So that would be the movie for me that I would compare to that. All right. Next up, we've got Murray Reich, who writes, my personal top 10 best movies of 2023 in no particular order: Guardians 3, Air. I loved Air. Spider-Verse, The Flash, Mission Impossible 7, Killers of the Flower Moon, Godzilla Minus One, The Holdovers, American Fiction. Favorite, John Wick 4. John Wick 4 was a blast, man. It's a blast. My one problem with John Wick 4 is the problem that I've had with John Wick 2, John Wick 3, and John Wick 4. And you guys probably know what I'm going to say here. My one problem, especially because I've been watching clips of the first John Wick movie again, is that in the first John Wick movie, John Wick was the Baba Yaga. He's the boogeyman. You mention his name, and the most ruthless people in the world trembled in fear. When the dude brought in John Wick's car, and John Leguizamo sees it, and he's like, he recognizes the car. He's like, where did you get that car? And he punches the mob boss's son in the face. It's like, the mob boss isn't going to like that. And John's like, he may not like it, but he'll understand. And then the mob boss is like, why did you hit my son? It was John Wick's car. And the mob boss is like, oh. One of the best lines. One of the best lines. John, how can you say just the word O-H-O? How can you say that's a brilliant, it's brilliant writing. Because that mob boss, being that Russian mob boss, being on that phone, like, you hit my son, I'm this powerful mob boss. He says, the car belonged to John Wick. Pause. Oh. How much story did they just tell us with one word? Oh. By just saying that one word, we understood the whole construct of this John Wick universe. Everybody fears John Wick. And oh my God, my son effed up. And oh my God, my life is now in danger. And all of that with, brilliant writing. Brilliant, right? I love it when writers can tell us tons by saying little, right? Anyway, so that was John Wick Chapter 1. The problem I have with John Wick 2, 3, and 4, and I love all those movies. I'm not the biggest fan of John Wick 2, but I like John Wick 2. I like John Wick 2 very much, but 3 and 4 are awesome. But my biggest problem is John Wick went from being the Baba Yaga that made the worst of the worst in the world shit their pants to, John Wick, go kill John Wick. Sure, everybody wants to take a shot at John. Nobody is scared of John Wick. There are people in that universe now that respect John Wick, but nobody fears John Wick anymore. They would shit their pants at the mention of his name in the first movie, and ever since then, nobody's afraid of him. Right? And to me, that's weird. And I hope when they bring back John Wick 5, and they will bring back John Wick 5, there's going to be a John Wick 5, that they start to reintroduce, because listen, what has he done since the first John Wick? He's only killed about 2,000 in John Wicks 1, 2, 3, and 4. He's only killed like 2,000 of the world's greatest killers since John Wick 1. So his reputation and his mythology and his legend should be even bigger, that everybody on the planet should know, do not fuck with John Wick. Not his dog, not his car, not his morning coffee. Do not fuck with John Wick. There's a price on the head of this guy for $5 million. Who is it? I want that $5 million. John Wick. Fuck no. That's what I want to see in John Wick 5. That's kind of what I want to see in John Wick 5. Anyway, it's just, I go off on that every time. That's just me. All right. Murray Reich also writes, my personal, not best, but surprising movies of 2023. Megan, I did adore Megan. Was that 2023? It feels like it was 2022, but okay, I'll take your word for it. Plane, Missing, Operation Fortune, Tetris, The Blackening. I really had a good time with The Blackening. No Hard Feelings. I also really like No Hard Feelings. TMNT, Blue Beetle. Really love that. Strays. Had a great time with Strays. Gran Turismo. I thought that was a pleasant surprise movie too. Dumb Money was utterly fantastic. The Creator, quite good. The Killer and Winnie the Pooh. Just kidding. I'll tell you what, Murray, I agree with every film on your list. 100% I agree with every film on your list. I had a lot of fun with a lot of those. Particularly, Dumb Money should be an Oscar contender. I think Dumb Money was that good. The Blackening was delightful. A lot of people give a lot of crap to No Hard Feelings. I thought that was a charming, very charming, good, solid, funny comedy. Not a greatest comedies of all time discussion or anything like that, but not like, why am I freezing on the name? Joyride. Not like Joyride, but a good, solid little comedy. I thought it was good. So that was just me. All right. Next up, we got Murray Reich again, who writes, my personal disappointing movies of 2023 in no order. Knock at the Cabin. I agree. I was a little bit let down from that because I thought it looked so great. Anyway, Shazam 2. I like that movie. Not as good as the first one. Indy 5, Five Nights at Freddy's. Most disappointing movie, Ant-Man 3. So much potential wasted. They did Kang dirty. Plus all the weird stuff going on, like I Have Holes and Red Goo. WTF Disney. Here's the funny thing. As bad as Ant-Man 3 was, and it was pretty bad, I thought, oddly enough, that Kang was one of the bright spots in it. Still didn't work completely great, but I thought Kang was actually one of the bright spots in the movie. And I thought there were a few upsides to Ant-Man 3. Overall, bad film. You guys know I think that. But yeah, it still had some things going for it, I think. All right. Next up, Chad from Pittsburgh writes, I thought 2023 was a good year overall for films, but here are some movies that disappointed me. Napoleon, probably my biggest disappointment of the year was Napoleon. I was Man, that movie was boring. Anyway, Ant-Man, The Flash, and Indiana Jones. I actually still love The Flash. I don't care what anybody says. I loved The Flash. And Indiana Jones. Napoleon sticks out the most. What movies disappointed you guys the most? Thanks and Happy New Year. Yeah, like I said, Knock at the Cabin. I didn't think it was terrible, but I was kind of hoping for a lot better. Ant-Man 3, because I love the first two Ant-Man movies. I love Peyton Reed. I love Paul Rudd in the role. I was very excited about this movie, very disappointed by it. But I think Napoleon has to be my most disappointing one. Because, I mean, I thought this was a movie that was going to be a Best Picture contender, right? And instead, in my opinion only, it should have been a Razzie contender. So I will agree and say I think Napoleon was probably my most disappointing film of the year. All right. Murray Reich again writes, my personal god-awful movies of 2023, The House Party, stopped watching halfway through. 80 for Brady, I couldn't even bring myself to watch that, to be honest with you. Fast X, It's a Wonderful Knife, I didn't see that one. Worst movie, pardon me. Worst movie that sickened and disturbed me was Saltburn. Most awful / disappointing is Expendables 4, so much potential. Yeah, Expendables 4 was my worst movie of the year. Some of the contenders were Expendables 4, Meg 2, stuff like that. But Expendables 4 for me was easily the worst film of the year. I couldn't even get through it. Saltburn was a movie that I didn't fall in love with like a lot of other people did, but I still thought it was a very deep, well-made film. Not one of my favorites of the year. But yeah, I'm with you, man. Expendables 4. Oh, so bad. So bad. Okay. Dwarfer writes, movies that are 20 years old in 2024. Bourne Supremacy, Spider-Man 2. Is that only 20 years old? I'm not going to lie to you. Spider-Man, that feels like it was longer ago than that. Anyway, Van Helsing, that also feels like it was longer ago. The Girl Next Door, and Ben, Paycheck. Your thoughts on all the individual movies, please. Bourne Supremacy, pretty good. Spider-Man 2, argument could be made. It's in the top 10 greatest comic book films of all time. For a while, it was the greatest comic book film of all time. Van Helsing, I love. Hugh Jackman, terrible, just terrible. The Girl Next Door, kind of a classic for its subgenre, a cult classic in its subgenre. Paycheck, not so good. So that's kind of my take on those. All right, just a couple more, and then we'll take a little quick break before we go over to the super chats you guys have been sending in. Full Boil writes, I've been using Google Podcasts, but it's shutting down in April. Do you have any recommendations for other services to use instead? I have never tried other services. Thanks. Yeah, I got my notification. Some of you guys might have gotten it too. I got a notification the other day that Google is shutting down Google Podcasts. Now, they're not so much shutting it down as they're trying to shuffle you over to you. Remember, YouTube, they're trying to also now make YouTube like your hub for podcasts as well as video. So, you know, the Google brand will still have podcasts. You can just subscribe to them through YouTube. I have used a lot of different podcasting apps. However, whether I'm using a superior Android phone or it'll have to do iPhone. I'm using iPhone right now currently. Android is so much better, but my iPhone just works better with my Mac computer, so it is what it is. I tend to keep coming back to just Apple Podcasts. And I know that's not the cool answer, but I just keep coming back to it. A lot of people are saying Spotify. Guys in the live chat, what did you see? Isaac Martinez is also saying Spotify. VL Vang is one of the people saying, yep, I use YouTube. A lot of people are using YouTube right now. And there's also a whole ton of other third-party podcasting apps that can be great to use. But I'm with Captain Wingsuit. I kind of use Apple Podcasts. Podcast Addict is one that I've used too, Wasabi King. That's one I've used in the past. But Apple Podcasts just seems to be the one I'm just comfortable with its interface. It's the one I just keep going back to. So that's the one I'm currently using right now. All right. Couple more here. We got Riley who writes, Happy New Year. I was just wondering if you got the chance to see The Iron Claw. I did. I love this movie and I've seen it twice. The only film last year to bring tears to my eyes. And yeah, it's definitely a movie that will bring you to tears. And the reason it can bring you to tears is because they did such a good job getting us attached to the characters and emotionally resonating with the characters. And so when tragedy happens, we feel it. And that's the mark of a good filmmaker, I think, Riley. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. All right. Last question we'll take from the tip questions comes to us from an anonymous viewer who sends in $20. Thank you so much, Anonymous. By the way, guys, if you use the tip link to send in a question, don't forget to fill out the name field, because if you accidentally leave the name field blank, it'll just say anonymous. And if you want to stay anonymous, that's totally cool too. I'm just saying, since you guys are like sending in fun questions for us to answer and you're sending in a tip and supporting the channel, I just want to make sure you get a shout out. So try to remember to fill in the name field. Anyway, the anonymous viewer who tipped in $20 writes, with a version of Mickey Mouse now in the public domain, I have an understanding of how that works in terms of movies and other entertainment media. But how about collectibles? For example, a Steamboat Willie hot toy without Disney's licensing. Yep. Yeah. If you have the tools and the know-how on how to do it yourself, you can make your own Steamboat Willie hot toy if you want to. It is now in the public domain. That means you can do whatever you want with it. You want to make a movie about it? Do it. You want to make a toy out of it? Do it. As far as I know, to the best of my understanding, that's the case at any rate. So, yeah, go for it. And they can if they want. If they want to bring up and make a collectible figure out of that, they can absolutely do it. They can 100% do it. So I don't know that they will, because I don't know if they'd sell, but I know they can do it. All right, guys. With that all down, we're going to move over and start taking the questions that you guys who are watching live have been sending. And by the way, there are still more super chats yet to be answered, but we can't sit here all day just answering the tip questions. We'll pick those up tomorrow. We'll get through the rest of them tomorrow. But we're going to get over and start taking the super chats you guys have sent in. But before we do, we're going to take a quick second here, guys, and thank a couple of sponsors of today's episode of Open Mic, our friends at Mint Mobile and Manscaped. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Mint Mobile. On average, it takes about 30 days for a person to break their New Year's resolution. So if saving money was on your 2024 list, your odds aren't looking that great. Luckily, I have a 100% guaranteed way to save you money this year. Just switch to Mint Mobile. For a limited time, wireless plans from Mint Mobile are $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for $15 a month. I've told you guys many times that after switching to Mint Mobile, I am spending less than a third on my cell bill than I used to with a major carrier. Say goodbye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. All Mint plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. And don't worry about having to change phones or numbers. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. So guys, to get this new customer offer and your new 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bills to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Manscaped. Roses are red, violets are blue. Trim your balls, and your date will thank us too. What's up, guys? Valentine's Day is knocking, and Manscaped is the remedy for what the love doctor ordered. His prescription? The all-new Performance Package 5.0 Ultra, designed to elevate your grooming game and shine like the beast you are. Join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com to get 20% off plus free shipping with the code Campea. Guys, listen, like a lot of you, I used to shave my package like the Neanderthals did, using, the clippers on your electric razor, but that's not what you need for excellence on Valentine's Day. So let's talk about the hero of Valentine's Day, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. This electric trimmer features skin-safe technology guarding your Valentine's Day treasure against any grooming mishaps. This package also features the Weed Whacker 2.0 nose and hair trimmer, Manscaped liquid formulations, and 2 free goodies, the Shed Travel Bag bag and Boxers 2.0 because comfort is king for all my guys. So elevate your grooming game routine and set the stage for a romantically smooth celebration. So guys, get 20% off and free shipping with the code Campea at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code Campea because your grooming upgrade awaits, ready to charm your Valentine's dates. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Factor. Get started on your resolutions with Factor so you're ready for the new year. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery store and prep work because you know what? Sometimes we just don't feel like prepping our own meals. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan, and more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons, you'll have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart your resolutions. Forget frantic lunch preps and rushed dinners. Factor's 2-minute meals are your secret weapon in the new year. Fuel up fast with restaurant quality meals, all delivered right to your door. And Factor now offers loads of snack options like breakfast, smoothies, juices, snacks, and more to keep me going no matter what's on the schedule. It's time to skip the overpriced takeout trap. Factor is cheaper and way more delicious than takeout. And Factor is flexible. Change your order up every week with plans from 4 to 18 meals per week, or pause or reschedule your deliveries anytime. So guys, head to factormeals.com/Campea50 and use the code Campea50 to get 50% off. That's code Campea50 at factormeals.com/Campea50 to get 50% off. And thank you to our friends at, I almost forgot to mention, Factor, Manscaped, and Mint for sponsoring today's episode of Open Mic. All right, guys, let's get over to your questions that you guys have been sending in who are watching live. We're going to start things off here with Christopher Brickner, who writes, 6 years after announced Jared Leto's Tron 3 is filming. Yep, finally filming. It's actually, I honestly didn't think it was ever going to happen. They are now shooting Tron 3. And who's the girl from X-Files? Help me out in the live chat, guys. Who's the girl from X-Files? I forget her name. But I believe I saw today in the news feeds that the actress from X-Files is going to be joining it. Gillian Anderson. That's it. Lance Page, I think, was the first person to get that in there. Gillian Anderson, yeah. They announced that she was going to be joining it, which I think is kind of cool that she's going to be in there. And listen, a lot of people, I don't know why, crap on Jared Leto. The dude's an Academy Award winning actor. I don't care what you think. He's a great actor. You may not like all the movies he's been in or all the roles he's been handed or whatever, but he's a great performer. And it's going to be kind of exciting. Look, I don't even think they should have made this Tron movie, but they're making it. So let's see if it turns out well. Okay, next up. John Redcorn writes, Modok was snubbed for worst supporting actor. Maybe, I think. But the thing is, Modok was such a tiny, tiny part of that movie. I don't even think you can call it supporting actor at that point. More of a cameo. All right. Chef Rigo writes, I was on TikTok and came across the Tom Cruise COVID rant that he gave his cast/crew, and I'm shocked how many people had an issue with it. He was right. Dude, as long as I do this job, which will probably only be for another year and a half, 2 years. But as long as I do this job, I will always think about this situation. I think it's true of all of us. I think when there issues come up and all of us find that we agree with the majority, but sometimes an issue comes up where we find ourselves, and I think this happens to all of us, that we just don't understand where everybody else is coming from. I will never understand why anybody, any rational human being, had an issue with how Tom Cruise handled those fucking ignorant morons who jeopardized everybody's health and that entire multi-$100 million thing while Tom Cruise was trying to save the movie industry at the same time. For those of you who don't remember this, while COVID was going on, Tom Cruise was trying to get, I think it was Mission Impossible, finished shooting, right? And it was during COVID, they had very strict rules that were put in place about COVID protections and safeties and all this kind of stuff. And these guys had broken the rules previously and had been warned, because they could have been shut down like that. Tom Cruise was trying to save this production. He booked an entire ship to keep the cast and crew on, so they were separated from people, trying to get this movie made, save the movie industry, all this kind of stuff. And these two guys, these morons, had multiple times broken the safety guidelines and put their entire production in danger. Hundreds of people's jobs, hundreds of people's safety, and an entire production, the entire thing could have been shut down. So these guys broke the rules again. And Tom Cruise gave it to them. He yelled at them. And I don't know when our culture got filled with a bunch of little pansies. No, you can't yell at me. I'm a precious princess. No, you put hundreds of people's safety in danger. You put hundreds of people's jobs in danger. You put hundreds of millions of dollars of this production in danger. And you'd been warned about this before. Guess what? You need to be held accountable and you should be yelled at. And I don't know, maybe I'm from a different generation. When I was playing football, if I kept screwing up something, my coach yelled at me, held me accountable. When I worked in a law firm and I screwed something up, because we all do, but if I screwed something up that could have cost the law firm a lot, my boss was a great boss. He didn't come and say, you're instantly fired, you lose your job because you made a mistake. No, but he held me accountable. He yelled at me, dude, what are you doing? You know you got to do this, blah, blah, blah. Sack up, be fucking men. Oh, he yelled at me. Oh, Tom Cruise yelled at somebody? Doesn't he know he's supposed to treat everybody like precious little princesses, and how they feel about themselves is really very important? Fuck that. They put hundreds of people's jobs in danger. If I'm one of the people that I could have lost my job because this production gets shut down because those assholes couldn't follow the rules again, damn right I'd want my boss yelling at them. Damn right I'd want them held accountable. And Tom Cruise could have just walked in and fired them on the spot, but he didn't fire them. He let them keep their jobs, but he held them accountable. And he made sure they knew how serious this was. And he raised his voice up, and he should have raised his voice at them. He should have yelled at them. I don't understand the fucking pansies. Oh, no, you can't raise your, because the most important thing is you make sure I feel valuable. You know how you make people feel valuable? You know how you make people feel valuable? That when they make mistakes, turn it into a learning opportunity, hold them accountable, and don't fire them just because they make mistakes. Even give them multiple chances. I contend Tom Cruise let them know they were valuable by screaming at them and saying, but you're keeping your job. You're keeping your job. Because we're part of a team. We need you, but you fucked up. And we're not just going to brush this under the rug and let you feel good about it. No, we're going to make you feel bad about it. And you should be made to feel bad about it. And then you move on. There's a great story I heard, and I might be getting the company wrong. Forgive me. I'm telling the story the best I can remember. But there was a junior executive, I believe it was at IBM. Forgive me if I'm getting the story wrong, but I'm going to tell it the way I remember it. There was an executive, a junior executive at IBM who made a mistake. And instead of placing like a $1 million order, it ended up putting in like a $10 million order on something, right? Cost the company like $10 million. He got called into a senior executive's office who took him to the mattresses. I mean, just boom, blasted the dude. And then at the end of it, he said, all right, now don't let this happen again. And the junior executive was stunned. He's like, wait a minute, you're not firing me? I just cost the company $10 million. You're not going to fire me? And the senior executive looked at him and said, I can't afford to fire you. I just spent $10 million on your education. One of my favorite stories. One of my favorite stories. I love that. Hold them accountable. Try to turn it into a learning lesson. Make sure they knew the severity of what happened. And how do you get more severe than Tom Cruise himself? The little Tom Cruise coming up and like screaming at you that you just about cost everybody their jobs. I will never understand anybody who defends those two guys. I will never understand who thinks Tom Cruise handled that inappropriately. I think it was 100% the right way to handle it. And if you don't, I don't know what to say to you. I really don't know what to say to you. I guess you're one of those people who thinks everybody should get participation awards. I don't know. But whatever. You know what I'm saying, right? You know what I'm saying. Anyway, yes. I don't think Tom Cruise is all there, but I think it was 100% right. I think it was 100% right in that. All right. Thanks, Chef Rigo. I went off on that longer than I should have. Sorry. All right. Jack Fern writes, with Netflix Daredevil now canon, do you think they will bring back Bullseye? Again, Marvel is now looking at Netflix as sort of canon, kind of the same way they did with Grand Admiral Thrawn, right? They are going to bring certain things over from the Thrawn mythology. I think they are bringing a lot of things over from Netflix. I think in principle, they're saying this is the Netflix Daredevil, but that doesn't mean they're looking at the entire Netflix Daredevil verse and saying everything that happened in the Daredevil shows on Netflix, that's all canon. I don't think they're doing that. I think they're going to pick and choose. So, for example, I don't think they're ever going to mention Iron Fist. And if they do, it'll be a brand new Iron Fist. I don't know that they're going to bring in Luke Cage. I don't know that certain storylines that happen will be considered canon. So I think in principle, they're saying, yeah, this is the Netflix Daredevil. Mostly. I don't think they're going to bring over the Bullseye, to be honest with you. I don't know that. I'm not claiming knowledge here. I'm just saying you're asking me, and I don't think they're going to bring over the Bullseye. I could be wrong, but that's my guess. All right. Next up. Let's see. Jose writes, watching Sons of Anarchy for the third time. I love that. One of my all-time favorite shows. So good. I want a Harley Davidson and a prequel show for the first 9. Would you want both of these, John? Sam Crow for life. Listen, Ann and I were so into Sons of Anarchy, we seriously thought about buying matching Harleys. Anybody who tells you we're not influenced by the media we watch is stupid. So yeah, Ann and I were both so into Sons of Anarchy. We thought about getting matching Harleys. We never did get around to doing it. They're very expensive. We never got around to doing it. As far as an original 9 show, I wouldn't be against it, but I'm not really big on prequels in general. I would rather see, a pickup show 10 years later. What are the Sons like under Chibs? With him as president. We got a little look at that in Mayans. Mayans kind of went off the rails. Mayans was really good at first, and then it kind of went off the rails. But if I would be more about a Sons of Anarchy with the current Sons rather than a prequel. Again, I wouldn't be against it. I prefer moving stories forward, but that's just me. Let's see. Next up, we've got Matt W., who writes, you called it last year to look out for the Lions. What an amazing season for the Lions, now heading to the NFC Championship. Yeah, listen, it was last year. They were still terrible. At least they had a terrible record. And they had a game against the Buffalo Bills, who were red hot at the time. This is around midway through last season. And I think the Bills, if I remember the game correctly, won the game on like a last second field goal or something like that, right? And a lot of people, I still remember going, wow, the Bills aren't as good as we thought because they almost lost to the Lions. And I remember I said, guys, listen, the Lions have an awful record, but look at the way they're playing. They're playing some much improved football. They're playing really good. And Jeff Goff is getting hot. And mark my words, they are going to be a powerhouse next year. I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl or anything like that, but they are definitely making the playoffs, and I think teams are going to be scared to play them. And a whole bunch of people said I was crazy. Whole bunch of people said I was crazy. But yeah, they are on a great run. Now, I think their run ends next week against the 49ers, against the human cheat code known as Christian McCaffrey. But what a great run. That's all you can do every year is improve, and they've improved again. And then next year, I ain't ever want. If I'm an NFL football team, I don't want to play the Lions next year. They're just going to get better. I still think the Super Bowl is going to be 49ers versus Ravens. That's going to be it. It's going to be 49ers versus Ravens. I think Buffalo let Kansas City Chiefs off the hook yesterday. Kansas should not have won that game yesterday, but they did. I think they're going to get buzzsawed by the Ravens. And I think you're going to get Ravens. I've been saying that for a couple of months now, I think. I think it's going to be Ravens 49ers, but we'll see. We'll see. All right. Let's see. James Wheeler sends in a $20 super chat. Thank you, James, for supporting us on that level, man. Writes, hello, John. Love your assessment of Ray Bork and Paul Coffey, but I need to slightly disagree. Bobby Orr is the best defenseman on offense. With 2 Art Ross trophies and the 5th highest points per game in a career, again, Boston bias. Listen, I think if you ask me who is the greatest defenseman of all time, I will tell you it's Bobby Orr. All right, no doubt to me, greatest defenseman of all time overall is Bobby Orr. He was an offensive wizard. He was great defensive, very underrated for his defensive capabilities. And just one of the most iconic hockey players of all time for a reason. But if we're just talking about pure offensive wizardry, Paul Coffey was as dynamic of an offensive player that I've ever seen on the blue line. He wasn't the best defensive defenseman, but as far as pure quarterbacking an offense from the blue line, like I said, he did it with Wayne Gretzky and he did it with Mario Lemieux. And yeah, the dude was just magic. It's funny whenever I talk about hockey. This is why I don't talk about hockey too much, even though it's the greatest sport God has ever blessed us with. But a lot of my American or non-Canadian friends do not know who we're talking about. So we'll move on. All right. Next up, we go to, thank you for that, James, again, by the way. John Redcorn writes, what was more realistic? Megan Fox as the new leader of the Expendables or Cardi B as leading an elite SWAT unit in Fast 9? Cardi B leading an elite SWAT unit in Fast 9. And here's why. Because she looked like the most experienced person out of her team. Think back to that scene, right? She looked like the most experienced person on that team. So I can buy her leading that team. Megan Fox, who has not been in the Expendables, all of a sudden out of nowhere shows up and all the other Expendables are taking orders from her? This had nothing to do with her being female. She's a kid compared to the rest of them who hasn't even been in any of these movies before. And all of a sudden she's next in command? Really? The Terry Crews character, I mean, who wasn't there anymore, but the Randy Couture character, Dolph Lundgren, she's not been here. She just showed up and she's in charge. That's why I'll say the Cardi B one. The Cardi B one. All right. Next up, Everything Movie Talk writes, sir, if you haven't seen The Beekeeper, you are shortchanging yourself. This might be Jason Statham's best movie next to Wrath of Man. Bloody good revenge flick. First of all, Jason Statham's best movie is Crank. But that being said, I haven't seen The Beekeeper yet. I've been dealing with some stuff, but I definitely want to. I'm not anticipating a great motion picture with The Beekeeper. I just want a Jason Statham movie. I'm a big Jason Statham fan. My first celebrity interview that I ever did, the first thing I ever got invited to participate in was Oliver Stone. This is when his Nicolas Cage 9/11 movie was coming out, the Two Towers movie. And this is when I was doing my little blog, the movie blog, and it was just starting to get big enough that the studios were noticing and they invited me to come down and interview Oliver Stone. But the next celebrity interview I got to do was Jason Statham. I got to do this thing with him for Crank. And I didn't even get to do it in person. They did it where I sent him the questions and then he answered those questions for me in a video package and then sent me all the answers. But for somebody like me who was just getting started doing my own little movie blog and stuff like that, it was huge to me. I've been a big fan of his ever since, and I will always be a big fan of his. So I am planning on seeing Beekeeper. I better get out to it soon because it's not going to be in theaters much longer. All right. Next up, Jacinthan writes, movies turning 10 this year. Captain America, Winter Soldier. Yep. What's TASM 2? Oh, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 turns 10. Right. Well, that's another film that it feels like it's older than that. Anyway, X-Men Days of Future Past. That's surprising to me. That doesn't feel like that one was that long ago. By the way, I think X-Men Days of Future Past, I think other than Wolverine, or Logan, I should say, other than Logan, I think X-Men Days of Future Past is the best X-Men movie ever made. Logan is a top 3 greatest comic book film ever made. But I think Days of Future Past is underrated. Not as underrated as Man of Steel, but I think Days of Future Past is absolutely incredible. All right, next up. John Redcorn writes, had zero interest in the TED series, but my God, it's a must watch. One of the funniest shows I've seen in a long time. Take note, She-Hulk writers. You know what's funny? I had no interest in watching the TED TV series. I thought it was a dumb idea that they were making it. I still haven't seen it, but I've had a few people send me some clips. And the clips, I ain't going to lie to you, they made me laugh really hard. Like, they made me laugh a lot. So I made the decision this past weekend that I am going to try watching TED. Because I like the movies. The movies are really funny. And the clips that people have sent me have looked really, really good so far. So I think I'm going to give that show a shot. I think I'm going to give it a shot. All right. Next up. Where are we? We are at Chelsea, who writes, "Hey, John, have you heard that new Jurassic movie is in the works with the original 1993 screenwriter returning? What are your thoughts?" Yes. I heard that while we were doing the show today. And then, the show ended, had just enough time to grab a bite to eat and then get ready for open mic. So I haven't really had a chance to read the story to get full context of it. But the basic gist is the next Jurassic World, Jurassic Park movie, whatever, is going to be from the original screenwriter of the original film, which is pretty exciting. So we'll definitely talk more about it on the John Campea Show tomorrow. But I mean, Bryce Dallas Howard said that the next Jurassic movie would be like with a completely new cast and all that kind of stuff, which is probably the original screenwriter, which was the best Jurassic Park movie. The first movie was easily the best. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. And so it's probably the right move. But again, I need a chance to read more of the information, understand the context better, and then we'll talk about it more on the John Campea Show tomorrow. Anyway, good question, Chelsea. Next up, Hoodie writes, "The Suicide Squad is directly connected to Peacemaker, and the show will join the DCU. Do you think the movie will also be retconned to be in the DCU?" No, I don't. The great thing about the Peacemaker series, and why I think James Gunn is able to bring Peacemaker into this new DCU, is because if you just watch the Peacemaker series, it's not connected to anything. The only thing you have to retcon, there's only one thing you have to retcon, and that's that last shot or that last episode where Aquaman, Flash, and the silhouettes of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman show up. The fabulous "fuck you, Barry" line. It's a great line. It's a great line. But that is literally the only thing you have to reboot. Now you can say, oh, but it's also directly connected to Suicide Squad. Wouldn't know that really from watching the show, right? Idris Elba doesn't come walking along in the Peacemaker series to say, "Hey, Chris," that was his name. That's Peacemaker's name, right? Chris, isn't it? Anyway, Hey, Chris, how you doing? So really, the only thing you got to retcon is that last shot, that fuck you Barry scene. That's the only thing you got to do. And then away you go. Now, CJ Rebirth brings up a good point. They say, but they show Rick Flag Rick Flag in a flashback. Yeah, but I don't really think you have to worry about it. I really don't think you have to worry about it. I think they'll just basically go, just pretend Peacemaker is in this universe, because it is the most disconnected of anything. And again, any connection is like this, again, like this Rick Flag thing is a vague passing thing. So yeah, I think that's how they can bring it over. Again, they're going to say, yeah, some things are like everything that happened in the show is canon, but not everything. And I think it's kind of like the way they did Ghost Rider 2, right? Ghost Rider 2 doesn't exactly follow the canon of the first Ghost Rider movie. They just brought some things over and they didn't follow other things. All right. Next up, we've got Murray Reich, who writes, great football weekend. That Bills game. Wow. Again, it's really too bad how the Bills choked it away at the end, but it was a great game. The whole weekend was some very, very entertaining football. I had a great time watching football this weekend. Cannot wait. Next week, San Francisco versus Detroit. I've been cheering for Detroit all year, but I think they're going to get beat by, again, the human cheat code, Christian McCaffrey. And then I think the Baltimore Ravens are going to buzzsaw their way through the Kansas City Chiefs, who are just not as good as they used to be. So, but who knows? That's the great thing about the NFL. Surprises can happen. So we'll see. All right. Toshi Victor writes, thoughts on the UFC 297 decision. Didn't watch it. I talked about this for a little bit on the John Campea Show earlier today. You guys who've watched me for any period of time, you know how hardcore of a fan I am of MMA. I practice MMA. I've been a diehard fan since the early days of Hoist Gracie, all that kind of stuff. But I talked on the John Campea Show today a little bit about the fact that I have not watched the last 3 pay-per-views. And it wasn't from any decision or choice that I made, but I just realized I didn't watch it because they priced me out. It used to be $50 to watch and order UFC pay-per-view. And then when they partnered up with ESPN Plus, it went to $60 back in 2019. And then from 60, it went to 65. And then went from 65 to 70. And then from 70 to 75. And now it's at $80 for a fight card. And like, I'm sorry, I'm not paying $80 to watch one fight card. I can watch an NFL football game for free. I ain't watching. I'm not paying $80 for a single fight card. I might pay you $300 for an annual membership to be able to watch all the pay-per-views, but I'm not paying you $80. And so to Dana White, to the folks at UFC, to anybody from ESPN that may or may not watch my programming, you need this info. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying you need this information. You lost a lifelong fan. I was a lifelong fan of your product, and now I don't watch it anymore because you priced me out. You put it to a dollar value that I no longer consider worth it. Like I loved that San Francisco 49er game this weekend, but I wouldn't have paid $80 to watch it at home. I'd pay $80 to go see it live and get out of my house, but to sit at home on my couch and pay $80? No. No. From the people I've talked to, most of the people I talked to thought Strickland won the fight, but everybody said it was really, really super close. So, you know, it is what it is. But anyway, yeah, UFC, you lost a lot. I'm still a fan of MMA in general. I'll watch Bellator and I'll watch the PFL, but I can't watch the UFC anymore. You've priced me out. You've got, you know, as Gandalf said about the dwarves, or as it was Saruman who said it about the dwarves. They got too greedy. They delved too deep. I mean, that's what you guys are at the UFC. You got too greedy. Like $80 for a fight. I'm not paying $80. I will pay $80 to go and watch it in Vegas. I ain't paying $80 to just sit on my couch and watch it at home when I can watch NFL, NHL, NBA, Bellator, PFL, whatever for nothing or a hell of a lot less. So, yeah, y'all can go screw yourselves. Anyway. All right. Isaac Martinez writes, best movies of 2023. I'm not going to do a best movies. I will say this. My favorite film of 2023 still remains Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. A movie franchise that I shit talked for a year or more before the first movie came out, and I thought was going to be terrible, and I thought was going to be awful. I still, to this day, I still think Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is the best film of the year. All right. Mr. Godzilla writes, hey, John, wanted to ask, what do you think are the chances Godzilla Minus One gets a best foreign film nomination at the Oscars tomorrow? 0. Countries have to put up their films for consideration, and Japan, to the best of my knowledge, put up a different film for consideration. So there is -1 chances that Godzilla Minus One gets nominated for best foreign film next year, or tomorrow, I mean. All right. CJ Rebirth writes, I enjoyed the ISS movie, loved Du Bois, but weird ending. Yeah, see, I actually said that coming out in my out of the theater reaction to ISS. By the way, I really enjoyed the film. I thought it was really quite good. I wasn't satisfied with the ending, right? I was not satisfied with the ending. I thought it was kind of a weird ending. I'm with you on that. But overall, I thought the movie was really quite good. I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it. But yeah, the ending could have been, should have been better. All right. Just last couple of questions here, guys. This one comes to us from Robert. And Robert writes, Keanu Reeves is Darth Revan. He can still do a trilogy, especially if they shoot them almost back to back and actually have a solid plan. I listen, I love my good Canadian kid, Keanu Reeves. I love the dude. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, no. And here's the thing. You don't make a movie just because you have a good actor who could play a role. Like, that's a bad reason to make a movie. So I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't be against it if they announced it. All right. And the final question today. And thank you to everybody who's participated today. I appreciate you all very much. Final question of the day comes to us from Future Millionaire, who writes, hey, John, last month when I saw Aquaman on Christmas Day at AMC, there was no Nicole Kidman ad. It was truly a Christmas miracle. You know what? Hold a second. Anne just texted me. Hold a second. I'm just going to text her back. Currently still live on the air. Just wrapping up with the last question. Should be home in about 30 minutes. There. That's the wife checking up on me. Where are you? All right. So, yeah, listen, I don't know if it was Aquaman or not, but there was a movie recently. Maybe it was Aquaman. There was a movie recently that I saw on AMC, and they did not play the Nicole Kidman ad. And I was like, glory, glory, hallelujah. Like, I was so happy. And then the very next movie I went to, they did play the ad. So I don't know. But at any rate, that happened with me. I got all excited, but I got excited for nothing because the very next movie I went to go see, they played the ad again. So I'm so over that. That ad, Scott. I was over that ad the second time I saw it. It was cute, clever, and I liked it the first time I saw it. Although, somebody help me out here. Why are you showing me a commercial for something I'm already doing? So you're playing me this ad for AMC theaters while I am sitting in an AMC theater. You've heard me say it before, but I will say it again. To me, them playing that Nicole Kidman ad, wasting all of our time when we're already in AMC theater, playing that AMC theaters ad while we're sitting in AMC theater is like begging a girl to look at your Tinder profile when you're already in the middle of having sex with her. What's the point? You're there. Why do you need her to look at your Tinder profile? You're literally here having sex. Hopefully you used Manscaped. Like, what's the point? All you're doing is making us wait even longer. You said this movie was starting at 7. It's now 7:32. Why are you showing me a Nicole Kidman ad? And I love Nicole Kidman. I do. Anyway, guys, that'll do it for today's The Return of Open Mic. Thank you so much for being here and making this little video part of your day. Good to have all you guys here. Thanks a lot for joining me. We will do another Open Mic tomorrow where we will get through the rest of the Super Chat questions. By the way, the Super Chats, or not the Super Chats, but the tip link is open 24/7. If you guys have a question for the next show, go ahead and fire it in there. And we'll hang out again tomorrow afternoon, talking about movies and movie news and TV and streaming and all sorts of good stuff. Good to have you guys here. My name's John Campea. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye.